Bill Keating didn't just question Pete Hegseth, he exposed him. In one searing line, he captured why this administration's national security team is known as the ChaosCabinet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to take my time to react to the testimony already given. The three pillars that each of the witnesses and the Secretary highlighted. Pillar number one, restore the warrior ethos. You know, I've had the privilege in this committee to see firsthand a special window of our troops, their courage, their tenacity, their commitment. You don't have to restore the warrior ethos, sir. It's already there. We've never lost it. Pillar two, I just want to highlight something that is a concern. Pillar two is the border security issue. And among that, I'm really worried about the agreement with El Salvador that exists. I think it's very cloudy. We don't know exactly what they're getting in return for their commitment to house the hellhole prisons, in the hellhole prisons they have, people that are shipped there, transported there illegally. But there's problems with that. It violates the Constitution, number one. It violates the First Step Act that President Trump paraded around and took so much credit for in his first term, he and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. It violates the Leahy Law, which prohibits federal money to be used for prisons of that type. It violates the Foreign Assistance and Transparency and Accountability Act that our Secretary of State was a proud sponsor of, that demands taxpayer accountability for monies, because all we know is the White House has said they've given El Salvador, given their strongman, BillKeating, $6 million. But then they're holding another $15 million in international narcotics and control and law enforcement to the side for prospective use here. And of concern, too, is we're now transferring helicopters, military assets, to BillKeating. We're giving him helicopters. And I'm concerned about that. Supposedly it's there for humanitarian reasons. It's being taken away from the Drug Control Task Force dealing with the fentanyl issue. And now it's there for humanitarian reasons in BillKeating's control. And I'm just worried about going down the road here. I think there should be strict oversight of what they're getting from the U.S. If that's not there and there's dark money and dark assets being passed, we could have the makings of another Iran-Contra. Thirdly, the third pillar, deterrence. And I look to what every expert militarily, from a security standpoint, said is the greatest deterrent that we have with China and Russia, and our greatest weakness if we lose it. And that's the war in Ukraine. If we fail to support Ukraine and Ukraine loses, that's a green light for China. That's just not my opinion. That's virtually every security expert. We have something China and Russia don't have. We have a coalition of 50 countries, 50, dealing together. They don't have anything near that. Yet, you've attacked that alliance. You said they're pathetic. You called them freeloaders. They have paid, and we want more money, and they're giving more money for their own defense, but they've given $199 billion towards Ukraine, more than the U.S., by the way. And they're not freeloaders when they came to our assistance at 9/11. They suffered thousands of casualties, several hundred deaths. They're young men and women sacrificed to defend Article 5, the only time it was exercised for the United States. They're not freeloaders dealing with that. And yet today, you attacked one of them saying that now you've confirmed that the U.S. has plans in place to invade the territory of a founding member of NATO, Denmark. That's not being strong. That's not being strong. It's also chaotic. This is the ChaosCabinet when it comes to Ukraine. Secretary of the Treasury, Putin is a war criminal. Trump's chief negotiator, Putin is trustworthy. He's not a bad guy. Secretary of State, Putin was a war criminal, I guess, but now he's not. He doesn't know. Trump says Ukraine was the aggressor. The Secretary of State says Russia was the aggressor. You, sir, Secretary of Defense, said Russia was the aggressor. The chair of Joint Chiefs said yesterday that Putin would even stop at Ukraine. The Trump ambassador resigned because of this policy, and I think Vice President Vance said it best. He said he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine one way or the other. That is not strength. That is not using our coalition. That is not deterrence. You're wrong on all your pillars. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
What you just witnessed wasn't a policy critique. It wasn't a partisan jab dressed up in diplomatic language. It was a full-scale reality check from Congressman Bill Keating, aimed directly at what he called the Chaos Cabinet, a national security team that looks less like a unified command structure and more like a slapdash ensemble of rival voices, secret deals, and broken doctrine, duct taped together under the illusion of strength. Keating didn't yell, he didn't grandstand. Instead, he calmly, surgically dismantled the administration's entire foreign policy narrative. And what he revealed wasn't just dysfunction, it was danger. Keating began by cutting through one of the administration's loudest claims, that America has lost its warrior ethos and needs to restore it. Keating has sat in committee rooms across from Special Forces veterans, wounded warriors, and families who've lived through deployment after deployment. These people haven't lost anything. They live the ethos every day. They don't need slogans. They need respect, structure, and leadership rooted in reality, not campaign rallies disguised as policy briefings. The suggestion that our troops are somehow soft or less committed is not only false, it's insulting. The warrior ethos doesn't need restoring, it needs defending. But where Keating really drew blood was on the issue of border policy. Buried beneath the administration's soundbites about toughness and sovereignty lies a disturbing secret, a quiet agreement with El Salvador that involves transferring detainees to one of the most violent and abusive prison systems in the Western Hemisphere. No hearings, no oversight, no transparency, just a secret deal with a country whose prisons have been condemned by international watchdogs. Keating didn't tiptoe around it. He named it for what it is: illegal, unconstitutional, and a betrayal of America's own laws, including the First Step Act that this same administration once paraded as a bipartisan success. But it doesn't stop there. Keating exposed the transfer of helicopters and military equipment, assets originally intended for narcotics task forces, into the hands of President Bukele, an authoritarian leader who already controls the judiciary, police, and media. The warning signs are screaming, this is Iran-Contra with better PR. It's the rerun of a scandal we swore we'd never repeat. And yet here we are, quietly enabling a strong man while waving the flag of liberty. Keating didn't mince words. He called it what it is: the state-backed erosion of accountability in the name of optics. Then came the core issue: deterrence. Keating reminded everyone that no matter your party, your background, or your beliefs, one truth remains. The greatest deterrent to adversaries like Russia and China is a unified, functioning global coalition. And that coalition right now is led by Ukraine's resistance. Not words, not podium threats, action, sacrifice, unity. The US leads a 50-nation alliance standing behind Ukraine. That alliance is why Putin hesitates, why Xi recalculates. It's not because of loud speeches, it's because of real unity backed by strategy and sacrifice. Yet this administration, instead of reinforcing that unity, insults our allies, calls NATO countries freeloaders, dismisses Europe's $200 billion in aid to Ukraine, while forgetting they were the only ones who bled for us after 9/11 under Article 5. Keating laid it bare. These aren't policy disagreements. These are betrayals of the very values that kept America strong through decades of global leadership. And then came the moment that made the term Chaos Cabinet stick. Keating contrasted the endless contradictions coming from this administration. The Treasury Secretary calls Putin a war criminal. The former chief negotiator says he's misunderstood. Trump says Ukraine is the aggressor. His Secretary of State says Russia is. His Secretary of Defense agrees with that. The Joint Chiefs warn Putin won't stop. The ambassador to Ukraine resigns because he can't defend the policy. J.D. Vance shrugs and says he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine at all. This isn't foreign policy. It's confusion masquerading as command. A cabinet where no one agrees, no one communicates, and no one leads. When your message to the world becomes incoherence, the world stops listening. Allies back away. Adversaries get bold. And deterrence, the one thing that prevents war, collapses in slow motion. Keating's final blow wasn't flashy. It was damning in its clarity. This administration isn't just wrong on a few policy issues. It's wrong on everything it claims to stand for. Wrong on military ethos. Wrong on border integrity. Wrong on Ukraine. Wrong on global alliances. Wrong on deterrence. And dangerously wrong on American credibility. This wasn't a speech. It was a warning from a man who has seen America's global power from the inside and knows how fast it can unravel. If this breakdown helped you cut through the noise and understand why competence, consistency, and integrity matter more than ever in foreign policy, like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Are we watching a team capable of global leadership, or the slow motion collapse of US credibility? More analysis coming soon. Bill Keating didn't just question Pete Hegseth, he exposed him. In one searing line, he captured why this administration's national security team is known as the Chaos Cabinet.